And once again, we are back with another edition of the PulseWave Report with yours truly, Dex the Algo Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com, home of the world famous PulseWave Price Trigger Reports. All right, so we have yet another day and we have another market to talk about. This morning, Bitcoin is retreating from that $50,000 mark. We're now trading at 46,405. Market's down 1,360 points or $1,360 on the Bitcoin Futures Composite Index. The stock indices are up 2 this morning, so we got a little rally, a little continuation rally going on Wall Street this AM. So we're watching that very closely. Also, crude oil is inching closer to that $60 a barrel. I think it'll top out at 65 like it did last time. Just had a lot of trouble when it got up to that 65 handle. Don't know what it is about 65, but it's usually where it has a lot of problems. Not only that, but the US dollar is back down again, trading at 90.34, having a real tough time trying to stay at 90. All right, so we're having some issues here. Don't know what's going on there, but we do have a new administration, so who knows what it is they're trying to accomplish. I don't know. We'll have to watch out and see. But Bitcoin is hitting all-time highs, so the question is it because of Elon Musk? Or is it some other reason? Do we have a bubble? What's really going on in the world? Just remember, you guys, no matter what happens, markets always come to an end. Every bull market comes to an end. Every bear market comes to an end. So at some point, markets will change direction. It doesn't have to be some major news piece to make that happen. Markets go where they go. Price discovery is exactly what it says it is. Price discovery. Okay? This is what's going on. So markets are going to do what they do regardless of what we think, regardless of how we feel. They will do what they do. We know that gold and silver over 5,000 plus years has always been considered money, but it doesn't mean that people won't say we don't need it. You always have to think about that at the end of the day. And meanwhile, while everyone's getting into the frenzy of the markets without wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, lacking the pulse wave reports in their corner, people are going to get hurt. They're going to get burnt. Greed always takes over. And that's one thing about the markets. The markets are an equal playing field. Everyone's always talking about equality. There's no other industry that is more equal than the markets. The markets are the most equal entity on the planet. Equality for all. Everyone is treated equal. Insofar as the market will equally take your money just as equally as it will take the billionaire's money. It does not care. The market doesn't care about your nationality. It doesn't care about your height nor weight. It doesn't care about your gender. It doesn't care about your belief systems, political, religious, or otherwise. The only thing the market cares about is price. That is it. Price. So you want equality, then you need to look to the markets because that's the only place you're going to get it. Everyone starts off on the same tangent, meaning that either you're going to make money or lose money. And that is an equal thing for everybody. Some people are able to make money consistently while others are not. And the reason for that, even though the market is an equal playing field, it will take your money just as well as it'll take anyone else's money, is because they don't have an edge and they don't understand the nature of the markets that they are trading. This is not your granddaddy's market or your great granddaddy's market. Things have changed dramatically over the past 30 years. This is not the same game. It has changed. We're dealing with algorithms now, computer systems that can execute, millions of trades at lightning speed. There's no way a human being can compete with that. So day trading is already out the window for you. What else you got? Well, there's always swing trading, or how I like to call it, trend following. We have micro trends as well as macro trends. A trend can last a few hours. It can last a few days, a few weeks, a few months, or a few years. But you got to know what particular trend you're riding and where is it and where is it likely to go. And you got to know how to roll with that. Without the pulse waves, I don't see how in the world you can do that with these machines that push prices every which way. So I just want to leave you with something to think about on that one. How about this? While everyone's distracted at the moment on silly things, you're being bamboozled yet again. You've been probably watching the impeachment situation, and you probably haven't thought about it much. So let me do the thinking for you. You're watching them attempt to impeach a non-sitting president. He is already long gone out the door, and they're spending time and resources to impeach him, even though he is no longer the sitting president. So that right there should show you their true colors and what's really going on. Taking that amount of energy and taxpayer money to go through this kangaroo court of an impeachment, for what purpose and to what ends? Let's take a quick look at that. Are they really impeaching Trump? Or is he a figurehead that is standing in for someone else? Are they impeaching Trump, or are they killing the U.S. Constitution? All that was required of them was a primitive patriotism which could be appealed to whenever it was necessary to make them accept longer working hours or shorter rations. And even when they became discontented, as they sometimes did, their discontent led nowhere, because being without general ideas, they could only focus it on petty specific grievances. The larger evils invariably escaped their notice. That is a quote from George Orwell, 1984. And that is exactly what you are seeing happening today. The society has lost the ability to think. Critical thinking is non-existent. That is why you have young adults putting Gorilla Glue in their hair. That tells me that you lack the ability to concentrate, to examine, to explore, to research, and you lack also understanding, common sense, practical sense. Why would you put Gorilla Glue in your hair? Gorilla Glue is the new age crazy glue from back in the day. I don't understand. That's like saying, well, I loaded the gun, I put it to my head, and I pulled the trigger. I blew my head off. Now I want to sue the gun company. So what did you think was going to happen when you pulled the trigger, when you put the gun to your head? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? We are looking at a society of ignoramuses that cannot think clearly about any subject. So to be clear, this whole impeachment charade of Donald Trump is a waste of taxpayer money and a waste of time. Impeaching Trump will accomplish very little, and it will not in any way improve the plight of the average American citizen who they care nothing about. It will only reinforce the spectacle and farce that have come to be the synonymous with our political system today. Remember, millions, tens of millions for that matter, of people are out of work. Instead of them using the time and the energy and the money that they're spending on impeaching a non-sitting president, they could be giving that to the tens of millions of citizens that are out of work and in desperate need of money. Do you see how they don't care about you? They only care about their agenda. While the nation allows itself to be distracted by yet more bread and circus politics, we're looking at a government run by unprincipled career politicians and corporate thieves that pander to the worst vices in our nature and has little regard for the rights of the people. They continue to suck the American people into a parallel universe in which the Constitution is meaningless. The government is all powerful and the citizenry are powerless to defend themselves against government agents who steal, spy, lie, plunder, kill, abuse, and generally inflict mayhem and sow madness on everyone and everything in their sphere. And yet, the American people allow this and do nothing. So instead of impeaching Donald Trump, why don't we impeach the deep state and its cabal of government operatives from every point along the political spectrum? The right, the left, the center, every Democrat, every Republican, like I told you to do in this prior election and you didn't listen to me, and now look what you've done. You have single-handedly killed the Constitution by allowing them to do it with your ignorant actions and inactions. These individuals have conspired to expand the federal government's power at the expense of the citizenry yet again. We've been losing our freedom so incrementally for so long, sold to us in the name of national security and safety. They're going to keep us safe. Oh, we're going to create global peace, maintained by way of martial law disguised as law and order, and enforced by a standing army of militarized police and a political elite determined to maintain their powers at all costs. Isn't that where we find ourselves today? I don't recall a time in my lifetime where Washington, D.C. was locked down by the military. Where you got military on the streets, military on city streets, military on American city streets. I do not recall where that's ever happened in the nation's capital. These are dangerous times, ladies and gentlemen. Very dangerous times. And although these are indeed dangerous times, it's not because of violent crime, which is now at an all-time high. We're up 30% from 2019 alone. No, it's not the issue. The real danger that we face comes from none other than the U.S. government itself and the powers it is granted to its standing armies to rob, to steal, to cheat, to harass, to detain, to brutalize, to terrorize, to torture and kill American citizens with immunity. When has any American citizen been robbed? Oh, you don't know about the laws that they enacted in their so-called effort to fight crime and to fight drug trafficking? They can seize your home and all your assets, everything that you own, and you will never get it back, even if you're found to be innocent. They want you to prove a negative, something you can never do. Prove you didn't do it. I thought you were innocent until proven guilty. not you having to prove that you didn't do it. Yes, they rob and steal. How many times has American citizens been pulled over for routine traffic violations only to have their belongings and their cash seized by police? Hmm? We could do this all day. You see, the danger that the American citizenry face comes from masked invaders on the government payroll who crash through our doors in the dark of night, shoot our dogs, and terrorize our families. You know, they call that being swatted. But I'm here to tell you there's something worse than being swatted, and that's being doxxed on the internet, giving every serial killer and crazy person directions to you. The danger also comes from militarized henchmen on the government payroll who demand absolute obedience, instill abject fear, and shoot first and ask questions later. No, the danger comes from greedy, power-hungry bureaucrats on the government payroll who have little to no understanding of their constitutional limits. The danger comes from greedy politicians and corporations from whom profit is their main goal and objective and their principles. The danger comes from a surveillance state that grows more and more ominous and powerful by the day. Enter the Illuminati Index, ticker HACK. No one was talking about it until I exposed it. Now it's talked about commonly on the mainstream media. Consider, just for a moment, all the dastardly, devious, diabolical, dangerous, debilitating, deceitful, dehumanizing, demonic, depraved, dishonorable, delusionary, discriminatory, dictatorial schemes inflicted on we the people by a bureaucratic, totalitarian regime that has long since ceased to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Americans have no protection against police abuse. It is no longer unusual to hear about incidents in which police shoot unarmed individuals first and ask questions later. What remains, however, is the news that officers were involved in these incidents get off with little or more than a slap on the wrist. If that. Most of the time you hear them say, well, they follow procedure. They did everything according to procedure. So you mean your procedure is to terrorize, torture, and kill U.S. citizens? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you want us to believe? Americans are little more than pocketbooks to fund the police state. If there's any absolute maxim by which the federal government seems to operate, it is that the American taxpayer always gets ripped off. This is true whether you're talking about taxpayers being forced to fund high-priced weaponry that will be used against them, endless wars that do little for our safety or our freedoms, bloated government agencies such as the National Security Agency with its secret budgets, covert agendas, and clandestine activities. How about the fact that Americans are no longer innocent until proven guilty? We once operated under the assumption that you were innocent until proven guilty, due in large part to rapid advances in technology and a heightened surveillance culture. The burden of proof has been shifted so that the right to be considered innocent until proven guilty has been usurped by a new norm in which all citizens are subjects. This is exemplified by police practices of stopping and frisking people who are merely walking down the street and where there's no evidence of wrongdoing. But you know the gray area they use to get around that? They say they were looking for a suspect and you fit the description. Yep, I've had it done to me, so I know. By subjecting Americans to full body scans and license plate readers without their knowledge or compliance, and then storing the scans for later use, The government, in cahoots with the corporate state, has erected the ultimate suspect society. In such an environment, we are all potentially guilty of some wrongdoing or another, or we have the now unfortunate ability to be hosed, to be lined up, to be set up by the government. They can do this to anyone at any time because they have the technology and the power to do whatever they want. They can make you or I out to be Osama bin Laden on the nightly news without any facts, without any proof, without any evidence. All they have to do is parade a police chief out in front of them, parade the president doing a press conference, the Department of Defense secretary, or whoever. Then bring out a few scientists, a few medical doctors, whatever, and there you go. You don't believe me? Well, how do you think Dr. Fauci now is in charge of everything and has all government powers gifted to him? All he has to do is say something, even though it's not medically correct, and you are powerless to oppose him. They have made him out to be the emperor. And speaking out against the emperor is a crime punishable by getting yourself erased off of social media and no longer having the ability to engage in that free market space of ideas. Americans no longer have a right to self-defense. In the wake of various shootings in recent years, gun control has become a resounding theme. Those advocating gun reform see the Second Amendment's right to bear arms as applying only to government officials. As a result, even Americans who legally own firearms are being treated with suspicion and, in some cases, undue violence. In one case, a Texas man had his home subjected to a no-knock raid and was shot in his bed after police, attempting to deliver a routine search warrant, learned that he was in legal possession of a firearm. In another incident, a Florida man who was licensed to carry a concealed firearm found himself detained for 2 hours during a routine traffic stop in Maryland, while the arresting officer searched his vehicle in vain for the man's gun, which he had left at home. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you have no rights. The U.S. Constitution does no longer exist. The Bill of Rights has been burned in a fire. They don't know what happened to it. There's no copies. Oh, well, you have no rights. Don't you understand that even if you had the power to make guns disappear overnight, every gun in the world, you still would not stop murder or violent crime. Just take the UK, for example. Their knifing incidents are at an all-time high. People will find a way to kill you. You know, when Cain killed Abel, there were no firearms available. So he used a brick or a rock, whatever he could find, to bash his brother's skull in. If you want to kill someone, if you get angry enough, you want to kill someone, you can choke them to death. You can beat them to death with your bare hands. You can crush them with a stick or a brick or a boulder or a rock. So what are you going to do? You're going to outlaw Earth? No one is allowed to pick up a stick, own a cane, a walking stick, a walking cane. A blind man can't use a blind cane because it can be used as a weapon. Oh, and then you can't have your hands either. You have to wear mittens 24/7 because hands can be used as a weapon. You can strangle someone to death. When will the madness end? The U.S. Constitution says that we have a right to keep and bear arms. It wasn't talking about the government. It was talking about the citizens having the right to keep and bear arms against a tyrannical government. That's why you have a right to have a militia as well, just in case the government gets out of control and becomes tyrannical. That's in the Constitution because the founding fathers had the foresight to see that as a possibility in the future after their passing. Americans no longer have a right to private property. If government agents can invade your home, break down your doors, kill your dog, damage your furnishings, and terrorize your family, your property is no longer private and secure. It belongs to the government. Likewise, if government officials can fine and harass you for growing vegetables in your front yard, praying with friends in your living room, installing solar panels on your roof, and raising chickens in your backyard, you're no longer the owner of your property, ladies and gentlemen. That's a wake-up call for you. No, we don't have a government. We have an emperor. We have a dictator. We have a king. Emperors and dictators can make up laws on a whim. Whatever they say is law. And that's how we're being treated right now. Americans are powerless in the face of militarized police. In early America, citizens were considered equals with law enforcement officials. Authorities were rarely permitted to enter one's home without permission or in a deceitful manner. And it was not uncommon for police officers to be held personally liable for trespass when they wrongfully invaded a citizen's home. Unlike today, early Americans could resist arrest when a police officer tried to restrain them without proper justification or a warrant, which the police had to allow citizens to read before arresting them. Daring to dispute a warrant with a police officer today who is armed with high-tech military weapons and tasers would be nothing short of suicidal. As police forces across the country continue to be transformed into outposts of the military, with police agencies acquiring military-grade hardware in droves, Americans are finding their once peaceful communities transformed into military outposts, complete with tanks, weaponry, and other equipment designed for the battlefield. That's right, you're seeing this military apparatus on American soil, on American streets, in American towns and cities. Americans no longer have a right to boldly and bodily integrity. Court rulings undermining the Fourth Amendment and justifying invasion strip searches have left us powerless against police enforcement to forcefully draw our blood, strip search us, and probe us intimately. It's no longer unusual to hear accounts of men and women being subjected to what is essentially government-sanctioned rape by police in the course of routine traffic stops. What remains to be seen is how the emerging hypervigilance over the COVID-19 vaccines will impact that right to bodily integrity. You no longer have bodily integrity. You can be raped by police. It's okay. They can body cavity search you on the side of the road, male or female. It doesn't matter. Every orifice of your body belongs to them. Americans no longer have a right to the expectation of privacy. So forget not having privacy anymore. You don't even have the expectation of privacy. Despite the staggering number of revelations about government spying on American phone calls, Facebook posts, Twitter tweets, Google searches, emails, bookstore and grocery purchases, bank statements, computer toll records, little to nothing has been done to counteract these abuses. Instead, we are daily being accustomed to life in this electronic concentration camp. Americans can no longer rely on the courts to mete out justice. The U.S. Supreme Court was intended to be an institution established to intervene and protect the people against the government and its agents when they overstep their bounds. Yet, through their difference in their deference to police power, preference to security over freedom, and evisceration of our most basic rights, for the sake of order and expediency, the justices of the Supreme Court have become the architects of the American police state in which we now live, while the lower courts have appointed themselves courts of order, concerned primarily with advancing the government's agenda, no matter how unjust, no matter how illegal that agenda may be. Americans no longer have a representative government. We have moved beyond the era of representative government and entered a new age. Let's call it the age of authoritarianism, In fact, a study conducted by Princeton and Northwestern University concluded that the U.S. government does not represent the majority of American citizens. Instead, the study found that the government is ruled by the rich and powerful, or the so-called economic elite. I like to call them the shadow government. Moreover, the researchers conclude that policies enacted by this governmental elite nearly always favor special interests and lobbying groups. That's why they always exempt themselves from every law that they pass. They're given immunity, and it's done retroactively. We just saw that example of that with the vaccine situation. All of the pharmaceutical companies that are making these vaccines have been given retroactive immunity. Immunity from prosecution, immunity. It is not overstating matters to say that Congress, which has done its best to keep their unhappy constituents at a distance, may well be the most self-serving, self-corrupt institution in America. In other words, we're being ruled by an oligarchy disguised as a democracy, and arguably on our way towards fascism, which is a form of government where private corporate interests rule. Money calls the shots, and the people are seen as mere subjects to be controlled or eliminated if they get in the way. Rest assured that when and if fascism finally takes hold in America, the basic forms of government will remain. Fascism will appear to be friendly. The legislators will be in a session. There will be elections, and the news media will continue to cover the entertainment and political trivia. Consent of the governed, however, will no longer apply. Actual control will have finally passed to the oligarch elite controlling the government behind the scenes. Sounds familiar? It should. Clearly, we are now ruled by an oligarchy elite of government and corporate interests. We have moved into corporatism, which was favored by Mussolini, which is a halfway point on the road to full-blown fascism. Corporatism is where the few moneyed interests, non-elected by the citizenry, rule over the citizenry. History may show that form, and will show you that not only is that form extremely deadly, where a lot of massacres have taken place in history, but it's also, you have to look at it from another angle. History may show that from this point forward, we will have left behind any semblance of constitutional government and entered into a totalitarian state where all citizens are suspects and security trumps freedom. Even with its constantly shifting terrain, this topsy-turvy travesty of law and government has become America's new normal. From Clinton to Bush, Obama to Trump, and now Biden, it's as if we've been caught in a time loop, forced to relive the same thing over and over again. The same assaults on our freedoms, the same disregard for the rule of law, the same subservience to the deep state, and the same corrupt, self-serving government that exists only to amass power, enrich its shareholders, and ensure its continued domination. This is ridiculous. The powers that be want us to remain distracted and divided, alienated from each other based on our politics, our bank accounts, our religion, our race, and our value systems. And what better way to do that by enacting strict laws of social distancing and wearing masks? Yet, as George Orwell observed, the real division is not between conservatives and revolutionaries, but between authoritarians and libertarians. Let that sink in. Let that sink in, ladies and gentlemen. I have to tell you, man, this is where we find ourselves on this day, February the 10th, 2021. It's not going away. You got to deal with it. It's not going to go away. All right, that's all I got for today, man. Smash that like button. You know what it is, man. Remember, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. And I'm out. Peace.